Today on the Servant Leadership Podcast, D.G. Elmore shares what servant leadership looks like as an entrepreneur. D.G. is the chairman of Elmore Companies, a diverse portfolio of businesses across various industries. As a seasoned entrepreneur and leader, D.G. has successfully guided numerous companies and sports teams to growth and success, demonstrating a steadfast commitment to servant leadership. In addition to his business ventures, D.G.'s leadership style focuses on empowering his team, fostering a culture of trust, and prioritizing the well-being and development of his employees. Beyond his business ventures, D.G. is passionate about mentoring and supporting the next generation of leader. Today, D.G. will help us understand how servant leadership has helped him build strong teams, lead with core values, and achieve success across many industries.
Well, thanks, D.G., for joining today.
Yeah, it's great to be with you, Chris.
Yeah, glad you're here. For those that don't know who you are, share a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, thanks, Chris. I have a lot of different companies. Our umbrella company is Elmore Companies, and we acquire small companies from founders that are ready to exit and have some transition. And we hopefully build those companies up, and we keep those companies for the long run. We see it as generational investments because that's just what we believe in, is building up businesses over many, many years and holding on to them and continuing that legacy. And we've done that for 40 plus years now. And in addition to that, I'm on a number of different boards of directors, nonprofits in particular, focused on in most cases, advancing the gospel of Jesus and his kingdom. So the Navigators, Salt Exchange, Baseball Chapel, Pulse, a number of different organizations like that. So both for-profit world and nonprofit world.
Love it. On the for-profit side, what verticals do you end up getting into with those founder-led businesses?
We're in mining, logging, drone technology, corporate travel management, staffing, expert witnesses, let's see what else, professional development, publishing, software for the travel industry. Yeah, there's some others. It's very broad. Yeah.
So I'm sure you were naturally an expert at all of those before you got into them. How does one even get into this industry? Like, how did you get into this? How did it start?
Well, it started as I had one company that I started running after graduate school. So I went to law school and MBA school, and then afterwards, my dad had one of his companies was some people had committed a bunch of fraud, and it was a mess, and he had to fire everybody. And so he asked me to start running that company. And so it was not a simple thing to do, but we got it turned around. And as it was turning around, he gave me an opportunity to buy it. So I bought that company. And then from there, we took, as that company eventually got profitable, we took the profits from that to start another company, and then the profits of those companies to buy another company, and profits of those companies to buy another company. And we kept taking the money we were creating from those businesses and reinvesting it in buying other companies. And so that's what now my kids are doing that, and that's what we've continued to do. And so we don't focus on one particular vertical. We're very agnostic in terms of an industry. There's some industries we don't like, but we love looking into all sorts of industries. Yeah.
What was it like working with your dad?
Oh, it was the best. Yeah, it was great. I know there are all sorts of stories of families that, it's all sorts of turmoil, but he just passed away in June. And when I think back of how awesome it was for us to have those times of working together and dealing with problems and dealing with fun adventures, and it was terrific. We had a great time together. We always had this concept of, I had my sandbox and he had his sandbox, and I would go into his sandbox and help him make his castles, and he would come into my sandbox and help me make my castles, but I didn't tell him how his castles should look, and he didn't tell me how my castles should look. We just had our own sandboxes, and he knew where mine was and I knew where his was. So it worked out great.
And And you said your kids have gotten involved in the business at
Yes.
some level. What's that been like?
Oh, it's awesome. Anyway, they are so talented. And so watching them do what they've done in terms of finding companies to buy, bringing other partners along, buying companies that they're running, it's been amazing. Yeah, it's just, my objective has always been to be the biggest fan of my kids. And if I can be on the sidelines watching them, cheering them on, that's a huge highlight for me. Yeah.
Wow. So when it's all getting started, you're jumping into a company that has some major fraud issues. And I'm sure there's a big turning point at some level that you're coming in and trying to figure out what's going on. What are a couple other big turning points throughout your career that you've been like, wow, these were pivotal moments that kind of led to where you are?
Well, one of the most pivotal moments was I was getting ready to finish graduate school, and there was a ministry going on that my wife and I were involved with in Bloomington, Indiana, called the Navigators. And we were just helping people get to know who Jesus was. And the Navigators said, hey, would you stay in Bloomington for a couple more years? And I had no intention of staying in Bloomington, Indiana. I thought, this is a college town. I'm done here. I'm moving to Chicago, be in my dad's office, and, we were going to conquer the world. And after a few months of really wrestling with what to do, I made the conscious decision that my wife and I would stay in Bloomington, and we're still there to this day. But when I look at the different people that are my business partners and the companies that we have, if I'm not in Bloomington, those things don't happen. And it's just that cascading effect of that one decision has had a huge impact on my life, family's life, the businesses, and everything that we have. It's been really amazing. I'd say that was one of the biggest ones. I'd say also there was a point where I had 3 companies at the time, and one of them I was spending almost all my time on. And I came to the realization that I needed to have someone else step in and be running that company. And the mental image that I had gone through in my mind was, if I had to pay someone, this was like in 1990 or something, if I had to pay someone $100,000 to run a company that I was running, it's like, I can just run the company. I'll do it better than them, and I'll keep the $100,000. And I ended up eventually coming to the realization, and this proved to be true, that if I hire someone, pay them the $100,000, that frees me up to go do other things that is going to produce way more than $100,000. And the good news is the person that I selected was every bit as good as me. We didn't lose a single bit. And that was another big lesson, because I learned that the way to multiply myself was actually to find really good people to do what I was doing or do better or different than me, and then I can move on to do other things. And that allowed me to multiply myself out there. So that was a huge lesson also.
As you go into all these different companies, work with founders, a lot of them haven't replaced themselves, I'm sure.
Right.
That's probably a hard conversation to have with people. How do you help somebody even start that process of replacing themselves? A lot of leaders who will be listening to this probably might be in that exact boat where they know they need to replace themselves and don't even know where to start, don't know what to do.
Yeah, what we do is we look to help them understand, look, you can have a liquidity event, and we will bring in talent to help in this transition. And so I think for a lot of founders, they don't have a succession plan. Maybe they have children that aren't interested in their business. Maybe it's just whatever, something happens that they don't have a succession plan. They don't understand that they could actually hire someone to do the work. And even if they do that, at some point, they probably want some liquidity event. And so what we do is we help them figure out, okay, here's how you can have a liquidity event. And we are trusted people that are going to take care of this child that you have birthed and you have raised and is now a mature being, and that's when you have a founder that's built up their business, that's how they feel about it. They feel as though it's like one of their family, and we want to help them understand that we're the type of people that are going to take really good care of their business. And as a matter of fact, when we meet with people that are interested in selling their company to us, we actually give them a list of here are the past 15 companies we bought, and you can call all these owners that we bought from and get a reference check. So it's not so much of a reference check on the typical sorts of things, but this is to ask, how were they as buyers? What were they like to work with? And so it's really interesting that we really focus on people feeling like, oh, they took good care of the company that I birthed and created and built up.
With all these people that you're interacting with, you probably see tons of different leadership styles. One of the things that we talk a lot about is servant leadership. Is that a word that even comes up when you're talking about people or with people? Or what do you see be successful leadership strategies or styles that people have?
Well, servant leadership is a very successful style.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that I see it a lot. But certainly in some cases, but in many cases, we don't see that. But in my mind, the best way to lead is to be part of an organization, to be serving the people that are there in the organization. It's this internal and external, right? It's both the people that are the employees and serving them to help them really excel. And then it's also serving customers and making sure they're getting exactly what they're looking for.
So what have you seen from a leadership style standpoint be some of the things that you're looking out for when you're looking for people to partner with? What are the qualities that you're looking for?
Well, when we look at finding a partner, because we tend to, when we go in to acquire companies, we know and we've identified a operating partner that we want to be with us. And so when we're looking for an operating partner, we're not looking for someone who, we sent out a solicitation for resumes and interviewed for a couple of hours, and then we say, oh, we'd like you to go run this company. We're looking for people that we know what they're all about, what their heart is like, how they evaluate things, how they act around people, how they care for the people around them. And so we're looking for a special type of person that has a character quality of caring, loving, kindness, focus, intellect, ability to lead in a way of having a vision for what needs to be accomplished and how to get there. And so these are qualities that we're looking for in those people we partner with.
Are those things that just come natural to people, or are they things that people have to grow in from what you've seen?
Oh, I think it's really a combination of both. I mean, it's certainly something I've grown in all these areas, and there's areas where I'm not very good. And so I'm always trying to learn from my business partners or, other people that I know and just try to improve.
From the nonprofit side of things, because we have both the nonprofit side and the for-profit side, when we're looking at nonprofit leaders and all the different things that they face, they're facing tons of different worldwide challenges, right? all kinds of causes. There's tons of issues going on around the world. We see them in the news every day. How do you think people should be navigating stuff like that, and how do they grow in their ability to navigate stuff like that?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, there are so many issues that are bombarding nonprofits these days. I think professional development is something that everybody needs to take their own personal responsibility for. I think sometimes in large organizations, huge multinational corporations, there's in many cases a plan for professional development. But in most small nonprofits, even large nonprofits for that matter, people need to take responsibility for their own professional development. So I think that's something that leaders of all sorts, for-profit, nonprofit, need to take responsibility for. And I think one of the things that's interesting as I think about nonprofits these days is that because there are so many issues out there that in many cases someone's trying to tackle, there are continually opportunities for them to find people that are interested in their particular situation. And if they can identify, or those people can identify them, they have an opportunity to do additional fundraising that's going to help them in accomplishing their mission.
When you first were getting your kids involved in the business, you're probably looking at them excited that they're going to get involved. I take it they probably wanted to be involved. What were some of the things that you were hoping that they would pick up along the way, that they would be learning along the way?
So I think part of this isn't so much just when they're in business, when we're in business together, but what I was hoping they'd pick up along the way, even when they were young, was this idea of grit and hard work and focus. And I have 6 kids, so it's pretty amazing that all of them are super focused and super hardworking and have incredible amounts of grit and what they can put up with and deal with and power through. It's quite impressive. And you don't want to get me started too much more because I could talk forever about how awesome my kids are. They're amazing. But it is, they have I think also since I've seen them in business work through issues, it's that ability to just keep on going, to face difficult situations and continue to keep pushing through. And as they've done that, then they have continued to see success that maybe looked almost impossible at the time, and they've really been able to achieve some great success.
When you think through those difficult situations or difficult periods or seasons of business and life, what are a couple challenges that you faced that you'd feel comfortable sharing, and how have you seen success through the other side?
So I think one of the most recent challenges was 2020 and the whole COVID situation, and just trying to get through to the other side. And we've been very fortunate to make it through. Most of our businesses went to practically no revenue. And wow. So we have a bunch of businesses that are in the travel industry and moving people and different situations. So it was we also have, our family has a number of minor league baseball teams also. And so there's no baseball being played. So there were a number of challenges that we faced at that time. And there were a couple of lessons that came out of that, some of which I had already learned before in other situations. But one is that we had to make decisions that will allow us time to get to the other side. We didn't know when it was going to end, but we had to make hard decisions that gave us some chance of surviving whenever it did end and it came around, which in most cases was almost a year later. And so one is that you've got to make the hard choices, and which is cutting people, cutting salaries, cutting work hours, all these things that no one likes to do, but you have to do. The other thing that I thought I learned specifically during COVID was the idea that we have to plan for the difficult situations, not for the positive and recovery situations. So, for example, in the baseball world, we didn't know if we would start sometime in the summer of 2020. And what I was trying to get the guys that run those clubs for me to understand is we need to be prepared for not playing at all. Because if we play, we already know how to do that. That's the easy part. We do that all the time. So in all cases, I think one of the big takeaways was we know what we need to do, what we can do. What we have to do is prepare for the really hard stuff. And if we're prepared for the hard stuff and that comes, we're in great shape. If the hard stuff, we don't need to activate those hard things, well, we already know what to do when it goes well and according to plan. So we just go ahead and do that. So I'd say those are a couple of things that I learned during that time. Other times, it has been that just having this positive attitude of we will get to the other side. I think of what in the book Good to Great is coined this idea of the Stockdale paradox, this idea that we don't know when it's going to get better. We just have faith that it will get better. And we don't want to be overly optimistic, like, oh, it's going to end now or it's going to end now. No, what we need to know is it will get better, but we can't say when. And I think that's an important mindset to have, that we'll get through this, but it may be a long time.
With some of the obviously hard stuff you've been through, there's been a lot of highlights that you've been through. What are some of the most exciting things that you've been able to do?
We have one of the most exciting things is, besides seeing my kids succeed in business, I love that. But we have one company that in the education space. So we serve educators, school teachers, and administrators. And we bought that company when it was doing maybe a couple $1 million in revenue, and we've seen it go almost 100-fold over the past 25 years, and that's wonderful from a business standpoint. But even more significantly is that we have millions of teachers who have impacted tens of millions of students because of the type of professional development that we provide in terms of face-to-face professional development, events-driven professional development, books, online tools, all these things that have allowed teachers to impact students and impact families. And that's one of the most exciting things. When you think about the ability that we have to provide good business to make an impact in people's lives, I love that. And that gets to be one of the most exciting things. And, in the baseball business, I tell people there's nothing better than going to a baseball game and calling it work. That's the best. To be able to say, I'm sitting there, I'm eating a hot dog or whatever it is, and because we run all our own concessions, so I eat a lot of food to try it all out, and to be sitting there watching baseball and enjoying our concession food, that it just doesn't get better than that.
That's awesome. Baseball seems like a tough industry to break into because there's only a certain number amount of teams. How'd you even get into the baseball world? Because you're pretty involved.
Yeah, I am. It started, my dad in 1982, he had a lot of business in Hawaii in the travel industry, and the Hawaiian Islanders, which was AAA baseball team, came up for sale. And so he decided that he wanted to buy the team, and so he was able to buy it. And then the next year he bought another team, and 2 years later he bought another team, and then the family started buying teams, and I started buying teams, and so it's something that we've been doing for a long time. Yeah.
Do they ever play each other?
We actually, my dad and I had, there was a team in the Pioneer League back, I think it was in 2017, that he had a team in Idaho Falls, Idaho. I had a team in Helena, Montana, and they played in the championship against each other. Oh, and so we had this, it was the best out of three series, and it went down to the third game, and his team in Idaho Falls beat my team in Helena by 1 run in the third game of the championship series. Yeah, it was really fun. We were both at the game together, and he always loved winning championships. I do too, but for him it was something really super special, and so I didn't mind losing to my dad. I was happy for him. Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun to be there together.
Oh yeah. It was outstanding.
With so much business involvement, so many different verticals, it's hard enough to figure out what you get involved in from a business standpoint. Obviously there's like profitability metrics and things like that. When you think about nonprofit involvement, you named multiple nonprofits that you're involved in. How do you look at nonprofit involvement and philanthropic involvement? How do you look at what do you get into and what interests you?
Yeah, thanks. It's for a long time, it was sort of a smattering of all sorts of different nonprofits. And then as a family, we had to start narrowing down what we were going to be involved in. And I was on the board of directors for many years of the Navigators, and then chairman of the board for 12 years. And so that, from a personal standpoint, that was my real focus. And since I left the Navigator board and my time was up as chairman, because we had bylaws written around how long we could be chairman, I started other nonprofits. I was open to being on their board, and really it gets to be, from a board standpoint, I look at what are they trying to accomplish? What's their mission? What are they going after? And is that something that, one, I'm passionate about? And then the other is there a role for me within that board? What if they're looking for someone to fill a board position? How do I fit, and why am I the person to take that role? And so it's been a combination of what do they do and how do I fit within that. From a standpoint of being financially involved, it's a matter of, is this something that I'm passionate about, and is something that our family is focused on? And that's just taken time to evolve and get an understanding of, okay, what are we really about? What do we want to see accomplished in the world? And so how are we going to invest financially and become philanthropists, basically, getting involved?
On the board side of things, what have you seen nonprofits do well, or what advice would you give to nonprofits trying to build out a solid board?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say it is finding the right people that are going to give you a variety of opinions, but are all in on the mission of the organization. So to bring in people that are not connected in a heart and mind way with the nonprofit, I think just because they give you some quality that you think you need, I would hesitate to do that. I think you need to make sure you've got people that are passionate about what the organization is all about, what the mission is, what the strategy is. And then you can, from there, you go out from there to the next level is, okay, what do they bring from either a professional standpoint or a diversity standpoint or an experience standpoint? I think that's where you go to that next level, but you got to focus on that they care deeply about what the organization does. Yeah.
And thinking through now on the financial side, I'm guessing a lot of nonprofit leaders reach out to you and say, hey, we do the best nonprofit work there is. We're the greatest nonprofit, and this is why you should support us. And what they do is probably awesome. And you probably look at it and you also agree, hey, they do great work, but there's a lot of stuff you get involved in. There's a lot of stuff you don't get involved in. Well, what advice do you have for people who are trying to connect with new donors on the giving side?
It's interesting because I think there is something that's been happening over the past, I don't know, maybe 10 years, I think, really, is there's this movement towards what's the ROI on my investment in your nonprofit? How are you showing me a return on, you say you're going to transform this many lives, or you're going to do this kind of work, and what's the return on that? And I think data and statistics is all helpful, but for me, I need my heart engaged. So I think you have to bring both good data with good stories, because some people are going to be totally data driven. They're like, yeah, don't tell me the stories, just give me the numbers. And I tend to be a little more on the other side of, hey, I want stories that get my heart racing and my mind racing, because I look at data all the time in business, and I don't run my business from my heart. I run it from my mind. But my philanthropic actions and work, I want my heart engaged. So in my mind, what a nonprofit leader needs to be able to do is really, it's not either or, it's both. Come with stories, come with data, and then see, as you're meeting with prospective donors, see where do they gravitate towards, what do they really want, but be prepared with both.
That's really good information, really good thoughts. One of the things that I love to do to kind of wrap up a lot of podcasts is ask everyone we interview the same 10 questions, and they're rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you 10 questions, and it's just first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
There's no right or wrong answer, and we'll kind of see where this goes.
Okay.
So when I say servant leadership, who's the first person that you think of?
That'd be Jesus.
Okay.
He says that for the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life a ransom for many. So that's it.
That's good. 5 words that most describe yourself.
Focused. You should ask my wife. She would say humble, and good listener, caring, and able to connect the dots. So insight of connecting things together.
Favorite author or book?
Well, besides the Bible, I've read a lot of biographies and autobiographies with my kids. And then we would talk about them because you learn a lot in that. So this is not rapid fire.
That's good.
I would say one of our favorite books is called Shoe Dog by Phil Knight.
Love that.
Great book. And it's not really about Nike. But it is outstanding book. Yeah, I would encourage everybody to read that book. Love that book.
Yeah, that might be my favorite book as well.
Yeah.
Favorite movie?
The Sting, which with Robert Redford and Paul Newman. Love The Sting. Yeah.
Favorite food?
Pizza.
Favorite thing to do in your free time?
Ski.
Really?
Yeah.
Where?
In Beaver Creek, Colorado.
Love it. Surprising fact about you?
When I was 21, I jumped off a 20-foot cliff on skis.
And you're still here?
I'm still here.
Were you okay?
Yeah.
Wow. I would not do that. Favorite place you've been?
I've been a lot of places. I'm a huge fan of Paris. So say Paris.
Where do you want to visit that you have not been?
Probably Antarctica.
Love that. Last question. Best advice you've ever gotten?
Yeah, hire that person to replace yourself and go do it again. Yeah.
Again and again and again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love it. Well, thank you so much for joining. Excited for people to hear more about your story and to learn a lot from you.
Thanks, Chris. It was great being with you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Servant Leadership Podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to never miss an update. Be sure to check out the servantleadershippodcast.org for more updates and additional bonus content.